Legion time. Episode 4, or is it chapter 4? I don't really know. Anyway, it's the 4th episode of Legion. Now, at the end, or should I say during episode 3, David was sedated, and by the end of the episode he never came to, because we found out that he's actually put himself into the astral plane, which is pretty darn cool. Now, I mean, I talked about that in the last review, actually, about the fact that, you know, if he can teleport himself and he's got these telepathic powers and so on, then stepping into the astral plane shouldn't really be a big deal for him. But anyway, we've now discovered that he's in the astral plane, so he's no longer in the physical world. Or should I say, his husk is still in the physical world and his mind is elsewhere. And in this episode, while David is in the astral plane, we get introduced to Oliver, who is Melanie's husband. I mentioned him in the last episode, and Melanie was talking about him, about the fact that him and Carrie set up the, summer blocks, or whatever it's called. Now, this dude, we get the impression that he's in some kind of catatonic state, and for some reason or another, his conscious representation in the astral plane is inside a giant ice box or something, and whenever he leaves it, he puts on like a diver's helmet and all that kind of thing. It's all a bit weird, and it's very difficult to explain, to be honest with you. I'm sure there's some kind of explanation for it. And it's almost like some kind of bizarre architect, you know, from The Matrix. It's like, hello, David. I am Oliver. I am the architect. And, I mean, from Oliver's point of view, he's just happy that someone else is there with him, to be honest with you. But what Oliver does in this situation with David is he essentially explains to him about the monster inside David's head. And David gives the explanation that is just, like a representation in his mind of evil and power and so on, which is interesting, especially the fact when Oliver turns around and says, Are you sure? Are you sure that is just in your mind? Are you sure he's just, he actually is a monster inside your mind? And I really like that. It kind of confirms, not necessarily confirms, but, it goes side by side in regards to what I said about the fact that he is a representation of his power, but is he an actual being himself? And that begs me to think that the actual characters throughout this TV show are almost physical representations of David as well. Because you've got Carrie, of course, the doctor, who has this girl, essentially, sharing a body with him, Kung Fu Carrie. Let's call her Kung Fu Carrie, who I think is awesome. Because, I mean, they share a body, and then obviously inside David's head, there's a representation, the characters in David's head are a representation of aspects of who he is, and do they share a body with him? I suppose, I mean, in the comic books, we've talked about the fact that he did have these other people inside his mind, I am one, we are legion, and Carrie is almost like a representation of that. And the idea that you've also got Sydney, who can swap bodies with people, is another representation of David, to a certain extent, because when David's other powers or certain powers manifest, he becomes someone else. And that brings me on to almost like a semi-confirmation about that. And in this episode, there is a moment where David is in the astral plane and he's finished talking with Oliver, and he's talking to Lenny again, the girl from the Clockworks or whatever it's called. And we discover that first of all, we discover that she's not the person who we think she is, or should I say that Sydney and the dream guy think that Lenny actually existed, when in fact, that Lenny, who was actually a man, and the drug dealers, and she was actually a drug dealer who was a man, and so on. So we now discover that she's not even real, or is she real, or is she just an image? Anyway, let me get to the point. In the astral plane, she starts to bring out the dark side of David in order for him to escape the astral plane. And when she's like, we've got to get out of here, the hand of the demon starts creeping around his shoulder. So that in itself is like a representation of how Sydney swaps bodies. So in order for David to access his powers, at this stage, he's almost letting loose another person. He becomes someone else. So that again begs you to think, is anyone in this TV show real, or is it all inside David's head? But yeah, it's head thrashing. It really, really is. So much so that I'm now no longer making sense when I'm talking. We are now inside the mind of David Haller. Anyway, back to the plot of this episode. In the meantime, while David is inside this catatonic state and he's floating around the astral plane, Sydney and the dream guy are investigating them to find out how they can get David out, because they've come to the conclusion that they can't take his dreams seriously. So they're going to need some physical way to get David out of this, and by doing that they investigate his ex-girlfriend, and they also go to his doctor, who they've now come to the conclusion that his doctor is now living in a lighthouse, he's blind and he's injured. This is due to an attack from David, which again kind of ties into the idea that maybe David stepped into one of his other personalities and then harmed the doctor in that stage. Anyway, when they get there, we discover the Milky Man, the milky-eyed man's there, does he have the ability to shapeshift? Is he a shapeshifter? What power has he got? It's kind of crazy, because there's a bit where almost bullets don't even hit him, you know? And also in this action sequence, we get to see Kung Fu Carrie do some work. We know that she's clearly skilled and all she wants to do is fight, but she hasn't really got a superpower, you know? She's just actively an action girl because she gets her ass kicked. And during this, we also get to see Sydney use her powers as well, which brings us to the end of the episode, where we're caught in a bit of a conundrum. Carrie's been injured, which we then realise that when she's sharing the body with Dr. Carrie, they also feel each other's pain at the same time and suffering. Which maybe, I mean, from kind of the David's multiple personality point of view, maybe that's where David needs to go. David needs to embrace his other personalities, to become one with his other personalities, to gain ultimate focus of his powers. So that's me going on a tangent again. But that's what this TV show does. I mean, that's the great thing about it, is that putting us inside David's head is allowing us to ask ourselves all these different questions about, you know, about Legion, about what's going on inside his mind, about his relationship to his powers, to his different personalities. Is he a schizophrenic? Are these people inside his mind, are they an extension? Now that brings me on to my final point, is that maybe in every single season we are going to see David investigating these different personalities, and maybe this season is dedicated to the fat goblin demon dude, and this season is about him embracing that and mastering the power over that in order to really truly use his powers, or should I say his dark powers. So yeah, God Almighty, this TV show blows my mind. It really, really does. Please, if you want to give me some kind of direction in regards to this TV show and my interpretation of getting lost in David's mind, and are you getting lost in David's mind? Can you follow this incoherent storyline, or do you agree with me? Do you think that maybe everyone in this TV show is just an extension of David's powers? You know, especially with the whole Oliver thing. I mean, is Oliver really there? You know, is he there? I don't know. I mean, the astral plane essentially, does that really exist, or is it just David losing his marbles? And anyway, yeah. This TV show makes my head implode, and my eyes are bleeding, and my ears are bleeding. Anyway, guys, as always, thank you very much for watching. I really hope you're enjoying Legion as much as I am. And like I say, please let me know if you're losing your mind over this TV show just as much as I am. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Always a pleasure, never a chore. Click subscribe if you want to see more. Peace out, and I'll see you next time.